All right. How are we doing? Looking pretty good. Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to look at Adobe Aero. I didn't even hear about this. I just kind of stumbled across it. So I guess I'm a bit out of the loop with Aero. If you're not familiar with Aero, it is Adobe's augmented reality platform. So there are a couple of different pieces of software that go along with it. It's all entirely cloud-based. So your software is fiddling with my watch here. Your software is your projects. Project files are always in the cloud, right? So one of the cool things that is new with Aero, as of I don't know when, because like I say, I just kind of stumbled across it. I knew this was coming, but I didn't know when. And now it's here. And what that is the ability to use location anchors inside of Aero. And you can also use image anchors now. So this differs from how you used to be able to use it in that normally when you use Aero, you have to scan for either horizontal surfaces or vertical surfaces, and then set an anchor point against one of those detected surfaces, which works fine. But I know Adobe was working with Google and specifically Google Maps in order to get to work on a geolocation capable version of Aero so that you could actually anchor your AR experience to a specific geographic location. So it looks like that's out of beta and inside of the product now. So let's go ahead and have a look at how this works, right? So here we have Aero, and this is the desktop version. The desktop version is still in beta. You can tell by the little kind of blueprint logo for Aero there. If you use Aero on a mobile device, especially like an iPhone or an iPad, you'll notice it's just a regular logo because those versions are not in beta. But yeah, Aero is a public beta that you can download through the Creative Cloud desktop app on macOS or Windows. And you can see it's got a very familiar start screen. It prompts you to create a new file. You can do it here too. So let's go ahead and do that. New file. Because this is completely cloud-based right out of the gate, what that means is we need to give it an identifier. So we have to name it first. So I'm going to just call this Behance Livestream, since that's what we're doing right now. And yeah, so this is all new down here. Select anchor type. You used to, just have to do it with a surface anchor. So like I mentioned, a horizontal or vertical surface, tabletop, wall, something of that nature. But we also have these two other options now. One is an image anchor. So continuously track an experience to a physical image. So that's pretty cool. You can like throw down an image and bind it to that image. And then, for anybody to use the experience, they would have to just kind of print out the image and just, stick it up on a wall or something. It'd be interesting for scenarios like in a museum or something like that, right? Where you're walking around, you want to get more information, more content around a piece of work. But this is the one we're going to focus on today. So, location anchor. And you can see here, when you choose location anchor, you get this little warning down here. The other two don't have that, but location anchor does because it's a real physical location that you're tying it to, right? So it prompts you, warns you, notifies you that when selecting a location, please consider that the land, history, and structures at the location may hold special significance. So the idea here is that you don't want to do anything that could potentially cause controversy, offend people, that sort of deal. You have to be aware of that sort of thing. And this was actually used at Adobe Max last year in Los Angeles. There was a QR code you could scan outside of the convention center, and it would trigger a AR experience. So let's make sure my background music isn't too loud here. And yeah, so we're going to choose location anchor, naming it Behance live stream, and then create. And this is what's really cool about this. We can now select a location, and we are given, a spherical representation of the Earth here, and we can sort of enter a location. We can zoom in. So if I zoom in here, right, I'm just using my trackpad to find a specific location. Maybe what I'll do is, it can be fun. So I'm from Massachusetts, and one thing that is kind of interesting are things like, I used to visit a lot of cemeteries and things like that. So we've got like Hope Cemetery, we've got Spidergate Cemetery. I actually use Spidergate Cemetery in my classes for an example of things here and there. When I'm doing demos and things. So let's see, is that Worcester right there? Maybe. The tricky thing, oh yeah, there's the Worcester Airport. I'm from central Massachusetts. I know Worcester quite well. Or is that the Worcester Airport? I see two airfields here. I'm not sure which one's which. So if you're not sure, you can always go in and enter a location. So I'm gonna say Spidergates Cemetery. And you can see here, it comes up as Quaker Cemetery in Leicester, Massachusetts. That's the real name of Spidergates. But Google's smart enough that it knows that, the kind of common name for this cemetery is Spidergate Cemetery. So let's go ahead and click on that. And it's gonna bring us into the woods here because Spidergate Cemetery is deep in the woods. Now, if we zoom in a little more, we can kind of see it peeking up through the trees here, right? So let's set our location inside of Spidergate Cemetery. I'm gonna click on the map, and there we go. That's gonna set our location, and we've got our geo coordinates right up here. And at this point I can select, and this part's really, really cool. What it does is it brings us into the 3D map experience. And I'm not quite sure how the sort of perimeter is determined here. But yeah, we can go into this little area. Maybe Spidergates wasn't the best. Oh, there we go. And we can use our different little tools. So we can use like our, whoops, I always do this. The orbit tool and the rotate tool look so similar that I oftentimes mistake one for the other. So let's have a look around and see if we can, well, there's not too much here. I don't see any, oh, there's some graves right there. Yeah, so there's not a lot of data here for Spidergate Cemetery. So let's go ahead and change the location. I'm gonna change the location to the university I work at. So University, Colorado, Boulder. And there we go. Boulder, Colorado. And there it is. There's CU Boulder right there. So I can say like, hey, where do I want to like tie this particular location to? Maybe we do it inside of the stadium. Yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna stick the location marker right inside of the football stadium at CU Boulder. And let's go ahead and select that. And that's probably gonna work a lot better than someplace that's buried in the trees like Spidergate Cemetery is. All right. And here we are. So it's taken us inside of there. And you can see we get that spatial map data. And it loads in. We can see how nice that is. And yeah, so it gives you a certain chunk of content that you can work with. It obviously doesn't load in the entire map of the Earth, right? That would be a little weird. But yeah, it gives us this little bit of content. So here we can now go and say like, hey, what do I want to put in here? And of course you can add 3D models, you can add Photoshop documents, images, sounds, animations, all sorts of things too here by just clicking the plus button here. And that's gonna bring up, right, stuff that you can search on your hard drive and bring in those different models. But you also have like a lot of these particular 3D type softwares from Adobe. You have a number of starter assets. So very similar to what you see inside of a lot of the Substance 3D applications and even Adobe Dimension. So if we look here, we've got these abstract shapes. These are kind of cool, but the thing I don't like about them very much is that they are all this gold color and there's not really any way to change them. Of course, you could go in and like, you can bring in a model inside of Painter or Stager, you know, change it there, re-export it with the new material, and there you go. Hey, Kevin, how are you today? It is Kevin Brandon, a fellow Adobe education leader. Yeah, and the chat is open. It's really weird. I have to always like turn the chat on manually now whenever I start, or the thing is just like, it doesn't work. Like the chat is off by default. Behance makes some strange decisions lately around stuff like that. Yeah. But we could put things like a dead tree in there. That might be fun. Oh, layered illustrations. Let's do one of these. So I'm gonna kind of change my view. Right, and this changing of the camera view doesn't really do, you know, this is just author time. It doesn't do anything that's permanent. When somebody actually explores this thing, you know, their camera is basically their phone camera. So the camera tools here, and when you preview, you also get camera tools, right? Those are just meant to represent your view inside of the environment in the AR experience. So let's pick out one of these. Nature. Oh, wow, it's so tiny. We need to make it a lot bigger, so we're gonna scale it up a lot. There we go. And now if we preview it, right, we can use our orbit tool to scrub around it, right, to view it. And if we look down here, we also, in our properties, have the ability to perform layer spacing on the X, Y, and Z axes. So if I choose layer spacing here, I don't know, let's change it. So I want to make it fairly significant. We're dealing with a big, there we go, with a pretty big, big area here, right? So if we go around now, we can see that those layers have been spaced out so that when we walk around this experience, we'll be able to actually see that. So like if I just activate it here in preview and I look around, I can see what's going on there. I've placed this stuff inside of the football stadium at my university. Pretty fun. Let's zoom out a bit. I want to move this guy back here. And let's put something else in there. Let's do something with some 3D content. Dead tree. I love dead trees. Let's go. I like alive trees too. But dead trees definitely have a sort of, you know, a flair to them, I guess you could say. So we can rotate it, right? We just get all of the same kind of controls here that we normally have using something that's like a Substance 3D application, like Stager, like, again, Dimension, Kevin. Oh, hello. Welcome. Sarthak? Am I saying that correctly? I apologize if I'm not. Now, if we preview, we can go in here again and look around, right? We can explore the environment. So yeah, of course, this map is just a placeholder that's being generated by Google inside of Adobe Aero. And what it allows us to do, because the map data is, right, one-to-one real life, like whatever kind of stuff we set up inside of Aero here, when we actually go and visit the University of Colorado Boulder, and we go through and walk through the experience, it will appear exactly like it does right there, right? It's a one-to-one experience. So I want to put some stuff over on the other side of the stadium too. I don't know what. I'm just grabbing stuff here from our starter assets. Like I mentioned, you can, of course, use your own content. You can create stuff in Photoshop and bring it in, create stuff in Stager and bring it in. Yeah, let's hang the moon. Why not? I'm gonna drop the moon in here. Put it up top, because, right. Now wait, do I not have scale controls? Yeah, I do. I'm gonna say, I gotta be able to scale the moon, right? Because it's gonna be a lot larger than the stadium. Or at least it should be. We'll just offset its position over here. And then we can go in and, right, so if we're on the ground, we walk forward through the experience. Then we can look around, look up, look over. There's our trees. There's our little art piece. Look up and like, whoa, what's the moon doing here? So close to the ground. That doesn't make sense. Yeah. So this is a really neat addition to what was already pretty cool, right? I've been a big fan of Aero for a while, and being able to use it on desktop, while it's useful to do so, right? Because you can do stuff with finer level of controls. It behaves more like an actual Creative Cloud desktop application, right? You can use a mouse, touchpad, that sort of thing. Whereas on mobile, if you're doing stuff, it's of course tied to what you can do with touch, which can be finicky. Hello, I see other people are joining. How are you today? Yeah, so this is just the regular version of Aero. And you can get to the Aero desktop, which is in beta, but it's public beta. So anybody can access it. So like if we go into our Creative Cloud app, right? I got some updates here around Lightroom. That happened overnight. Let's go out of there and into our apps. And yeah, you might think it's under beta, but I've never been able to find it under beta. You can see it's not actually there. They actually put it under the 3D and AR category. But for some reason, I think it's because I already have it installed, it actually doesn't show up inside of 3D and AR, even though it has AR in the name, which is pretty silly. Yeah. So let's actually go through and like if I choose to look at oh, that's weird. Yeah, you can't choose mobile or tablet. If I go to all apps and we go to mobile and tablet. Yeah, so here's Aero on mobile, right? So there's a question, what is the name of the application? This is Adobe Aero that we're using. So this version of Aero that's green in its logo, you can see that that one is available on mobile and tablet. And the version I'm using here on the desktop is the desktop version. So if we look, if we just go to desktop, it's very odd that Aero doesn't show up sometimes. There it is. More apps from Adobe. Aero Beta, design augmented reality experiences. And this is Adobe Aero right here. This is what we're using today. And we can see it's version 0.24.4 that has this capability. Mobile and tablet, you know, from here you can click Get Mobile App, enter your phone number or your email, and Adobe automatically sends you a little link to do that in. Yeah, so we got some animated stuff here. Let's throw a dinosaur in. Why not? And yeah, if I go and zoom in here, right, we can make the dinosaur bigger as well. And yeah, so one thing too, you can see here it says animation, and if we preview this right now, it's like, okay, the dinosaur is just kind of like hanging out, right? He doesn't really have any animation. Why is that? It's because we haven't triggered it. So if we go back to edit and we make sure that our little dinosaur is selected, down below here, we've got a couple of controls that will show different panels. So this shows our content in terms of starter assets, which we can hide that whenever we want to, right? And the one underneath this are our behaviors. So here's where we can add a trigger and we can modify how things actually work. So if I add a trigger here, there's a couple different triggers. One is a start trigger. What that means is that once the experience starts, the trigger will fire, and then whatever you assign to have happen will happen automatically, right? Then you've got the tap trigger, where you'd have to actually like be viewing it on your device and tap the object, and that will start it. That will be the trigger. And then these two are pretty cool proximity triggers. So this is if you get close enough to some kind of an object, it will trigger. Or if you exit the proximity, so you get far enough away, trigger something else. Pretty neat system they got going on here. We are going to do just a start trigger for our dinosaur. And for that, we've got scene start. Again, that's what happens when we start the experience. Somebody goes into the experience and, you know, it starts. So what action do we want to tie to our start trigger? I'm going to click action. You can see here there are a number of different things, right? Play animation, play images, audio, spin, bounce, right? Some of these are kind of like prepackaged motions. But this one here, play animation, this is going to allow us to select an object that has animation built into it, right? So we know that this one does because it was under the animation category. So we're going to say play animation. And you can see here it defaults to a specific animation. The subject is dinosaur. Of course, we could change it to any of the other objects we have right now. Animation set, dinosaur. Clip. There's only one clip in here. There could be multiple. This one, there's just one. That is dinosaur roaring. And if we hit the play button here, we can actually see what that animation looks like, right? So if I go into preview, so we could publish this, and because it's tied to the stadium at CU Boulder, if I go to the University of Colorado Boulder and I go into the stadium, to the very center of the stadium here, and I open up this experience that again is geocoded to this specific location, I'd be able to see that dinosaur. I could look around, I could see it. Pretty cool. So there's other stuff we can do here too, right? And what we can also do is say we want to have it loop infinitely, and then it's going to just keep on roaring the whole time, right? So let's add something else here. I'm going to add in another action to happen, and you can have things go in sequence or in parallel. So if I click on action here, it's going to actually, you know, do a sequence of different things happen, different actions. If I click down here, it's going to add an additional action in tandem with ones I already have going on. So for this one, let's rotate the moon. We'll have the moon rotate. And right now, dinosaur is rotating, and it's gonna look really stupid. If we go to preview, oh, it's not doing it yet. Oh, we didn't specify how it should rotate, right? Is the problem. So I'm gonna put infinite here. And yeah, we gotta figure out pitch, yaw, and roll. That's X, Y, and Z. So for rotation, we're gonna do Y. And I'm gonna say 360. So yeah, if we preview it now, it should, there we go. Hey guy. There he goes. What a nut. But if we go back here, again, I don't want to do that to the dinosaur. It's gonna make him sick. I want to do it to a different subject for my rotation. I want to do it to the moon. So now if I go into preview, you can see the moon is going absolutely crazy. Which, let's change our camera view again. Like, what is even going on here, you know? So let's go back to edit, because obviously there's stuff going on weird with the moon's rotation. We don't want it. It looks like it's got like a lot of kinetic energy, and it kind of slows down, speeds back up, and it's moving way, way too fast. We want to make this more realistic, right? One thing we got to do is change the duration. Right now, every second, it's spinning around 360 degrees. Let's change this to 20 seconds. And then we have an easing algorithm placed on here already, an easing effect. I want it to simply be linear because it's going to be constant, right? So let's have a look with those two changes. There we go, look at that. Pretty neat. Yeah, so this is the power of geolocation inside of Adobe Aero. And yeah, the reason I want to talk about this today, of course, is because, like I mentioned, I stumbled across it just because I updated Aero and I was doing something in Aero. And yeah, there we go. Yeah, go Buffs. Yeah, so I was doing stuff in Aero, and I just kind of noticed when I launched it, I was like, oh, this is in Aero now. You know, it's a very, you know, I expected it at some point, but I didn't know that Adobe had actually released these features that had been being worked on for some time. Adobe has some issues sometimes with marketing. And I mean, you know, to be fair, they do have so many different products, different platforms, different applications. They've got to spend their marketing budget somewhere. There's only so much bandwidth for stuff. And, you know, it looks like Aero is just sort of like, you know, kind of got a small pot when it comes to marketing right now. Anyhow, I think that'll do it for today. And if we go back out now, so this should be one more thing, right? So we set this up. How do we actually publish the thing, right? So if we go in here, we can go. Wait, I can't share it. Oh, here we go. Share. Weird. So yeah, if we share this here, we can. There's no image. That's weird. Yeah, so title Behance livestream, author, myself, Joseph Lebrec, and we create a link. So what's going to happen here is it's going to actually publish this as you know, something that we can share. So I'll actually, well, if I pop it into the chat, unless you're actually in Colorado and are visiting the University of Colorado Boulder, you're probably not going to be able to actually use it because, again, this is tied specifically to those geolocation coordinates. But yeah, we get a link here. We can copy that link. We get a QR code that we can use. And we can always manage our shared links here. We can change the thumbnail if we want to. So lots and lots of different options. And again, if I create a new file, we still have surface anchors, which is the old way of working with this content. Still works just fine, still works the same. You just scan an area. We have location anchors, which is what we just saw. So you tie it to specific geolocation coordinates. And the nice thing again about this is that inside of Aero Desktop, you actually get an environment to place things in, which is very different from a surface anchor. There, you just got a surface and you got to kind of like guess spatially where things exist, right? When I do surface anchors, I like to actually start out on my mobile device and put like a couple of objects in the room to kind of mark the space. So if I mark like the four corners of a room or something like that, then I know where the space is that I can place objects in and what I have to work with when I bring it into the desktop environment, which of course doesn't have a camera tied to it. So you've just got this empty gray box that you're dealing with instead of something like Location Anchor where you have actual visuals coming in from Google. And then Image Anchor, I haven't messed with Image Anchor yet. It's something to explore in the future. I didn't even know about Image Anchor. I did know about Location Anchors and the geospatial stuff. Image Anchors is a complete surprise to me. So something to mess with later on. All right, well, thanks everyone for joining today. I hope you all have a good week. And yeah. Bye all.